Our members are publishers, editors, writers, booksellers, and most of all, readers. I think that's the thing we really all have in common. We hold monthly meetings with a variety of topics and speakers. And right now, of course, we're just doing it on Zoom. Our members also are members of the national organization, which has a lot of benefits, including writing contests and discounts and chance to meet people across the country. So let us know if you're interested in joining or getting our information. And just to tell you a little bit about the future, our next program in February will focus on romance writers, just in time for Valentine's Day on the 16th. So is Mary Kate Lemming here? I can't see all the people.
Oh, okay.
There you are. Hello, welcome. I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okay.
And I'm asking the rest of you to please mute yourself. It should be automatic, but please do it. We're trying to get the chat working for questions. I'm not sure it's going to happen. Otherwise, we'll just have to do them verbally. So I'm a fairly new resident of South Florida. I come from New York, where I was a writer and editor. And I depend on local publications to kind of help me get my bearings and learn what local government is up to and find good restaurants. So I was very interested to talk to our speakers who have been writing about Southern Florida and to get their impressions of what they feel about the community. We have Mary Kate Lemming, who is editor and co-owner of the Coastal Star, a monthly newspaper. Deborah Banerjee, who writes frequently, 30 articles came up when I searched her, for the Boca Raton Observer, and is currently working on a novel. And Sharon Geltner, who's a journalist and novelist, has written Charity Bashed, that's set in Palm Beach. Sharon sent me a little bio where she describes her career as saying it has spanned social work, social climbing, social media, and more recently, social distancing, which I thought was very fun. So I'm going to start with Mary Kate and tell us a little bit about what you do, what your job is, show us your publication, and tell us a little bit about the mission or role of the publication in the community.
Well, hi everyone. I recognize a few people here, which is great. I'm Mary Kate Lemming. I'm the co-owner and editor of the Coastal Star newspaper. I forgot to bring a copy. There's probably one in the other room. I'm hoping my husband hears me and brings it. We started the newspaper about 11 years ago. I did it after leaving the Palm Beach Post, where I'd been for 22 years in various roles. Director, I am a librarian by education, and also I also managed technology at the newspaper for a while. I managed media relations for the paper, and I also worked for several years with the digital side of the company too, which was fun and enlightening, actually. I think we started the paper, I started it with my husband. He was a career journalist who had been at the Sun Sentinel for most of his career. We realized that the community on the barrier island in the southern part of the Palm Beach County was no longer being covered by the daily newspapers. And it was where we live. We live in Ocean Ridge, just east of Boynton Beach, if you're not familiar with the area. And we felt there were too many of these small towns that couldn't go without some kind of news coverage. So we said, well, you know, we took buyouts. We are between jobs. We feel like we're a little too young to retire. So let's see what we can do. So we did. We started the paper, and we were lucky enough to find an advertising manager who had also worked with us at both the Palm Beach Post and the Sun Sentinel. who also she lives in Coastal Del Rey. So she knew the area and was willing to jump on board. She's one of our partners. And it just took off. It's been amazingly successful, more so than we ever imagined. I really thought, having worked in digital, that a print paper had a 5-year lifespan, and we're going on 12 years. So obviously people still do want to read print. We do have a web component, of course. We do update it some during the month, but not all the time. Just when there's like a big breaking news story that we feel like people are going to be bugging us for answers about. When a plane crashed off the Boynton Inlet this week, we updated that on the web right away because people did want to know, and I don't think they wanted to wait till February 4th to find out. So we do update as well. It is a unique audience, I believe, along the coast. Obviously, it's an affluent audience. It's very high-end real estate, which is where most of our advertising partners are realtors. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them are, because they would like the listings of the houses along here. So the fact that we deliver to every single household is highly appealing. So that's been our business model. And as far as writing for the audience, I mean, we know that people, if it's a monthly publication, as the magazine writer will know, you want to be able to leave things on a coffee table for a month. You want people to be able to go back to it, to pick it up, to read it. So yes, they're interested in the news stories from the 9 towns that we cover, but they're also interested in the feature stories, and they're interested in the arts. We have a partnership with the Palm Beach Arts paper that provides arts coverage. And they're very into philanthropy, and that is an area that we cover fairly heavily as well, because we know a lot of the people in South County give as much as people on Palm Beach, but they do it in a much quieter way. So, which Sharon could speak to. But so we keep our audience in mind all the time, and we write for them. And we also write, I think, for ourselves. I have to admit, because everyone who writes for us is a professional journalist. They have been, or they're writers who've been working for some time, and we all enjoy good writing and good reading, and so we keep that in mind as well as we go on. And for those of you who haven't seen the paper, my husband did hear me and brought in a copy of it. And it looks like this. It's the Coastal Star. So it's a tabloid newspaper. It has 2 or 3 sections, depending on how well the economy is doing. At the moment, we're 2 sections. And it has, like I said, news, features. We have an extensive calendar of events because a lot of times people want to plan out their month ahead of time. So when we used to have events to go to, that meant a lot. And there's a few things. People are interested in virtual events now, so we're sure to list those as well.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great. Let's turn to Deborah Banerjee now. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and describe the Boca Raton Observer and maybe some of your favorite stories. I know you told me it's a lifestyle magazine. I always wonder what that means exactly, but maybe you'll tell us.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say I'm a big fan of the Coastal Star. I look forward to getting it every issue, and because there's no one else covering the things that we read there. The school board, maybe the school board meetings, the village meetings, what's happening really ultra locally. We don't get that. So it's really a great resource for the community. So I really appreciate it, and I look forward to getting it. So the Boca Raton Observer it's a monthly magazine. It actually comes out, there's a combination June, July issue, and it looks like this. I don't know if that's if you get a good view.
Yeah.
Each issue is themed. For example, this November issue, November is the giving issue. So it's there's a lot of features that are geared toward philanthropy and various charitable groups and giving and things like that. So the article that I did for this month was on how COVID has affected local charities. And so what I did is I ended up talking to, calling certain organizations and asking them how is your program changed, your donor base, how was that changed, those kind of questions, charity in the time of COVID. And the one I did before that was, this issue is from October, is the food and drink issue. And this one I did on the rise, which is about the craze for baking bread during the pandemic. So I actually talked to a woman who is a professional chef and baker, and I talked to some other local people who started making bread during the pandemic, and it was a fun piece to do. And I think when it's a lifestyle magazine, it's like what Mary Kate said. It's like people are interested in South Florida. They're interested in philanthropy and donating their time and giving to their community. So there's a lot in the Boca Raton Observer, and I know the publisher is also sponsors a lot of charity events locally. So people are interested in charity, they're interested in wellness and looking good. And so there's a lot of articles on various things related to health and fitness and food and restaurants and dining. And but also when it has a South Florida slant, it's like people want to know, well, how is COVID affecting charities in my community? How is COVID affecting, my lifestyle in here in South Florida? So they want it with a South Florida slant. So it's like national issues, whatever the national issue is, people want to know, how is that national issue filtering down in Florida? So I try to get a local perspective on every article that I do. I did an article on Lyme disease in South Florida. Believe it or not, there is, people are contracting Lyme disease in South Florida. So it's talking to local experts. And it's a national problem, but it's talking with local experts and people who have it in Florida and sort of getting the local perspective on things. So, I've been lucky enough to have a pretty regular gig with the Observer, and the articles that I don't really have a choice, that they're sort of assigned to me if I choose to accept them, and I 100% of the time do. They're really, I feel like I've learned a lot. I enjoy doing the research. I enjoy talking to people, and I feel like I've learned so much in the process. A couple of my articles have won Charlie Awards, which is Florida Magazine Association Awards. And I think that was a fun piece that I did, was the best burgers in South Florida. So I ate a lot of burgers and tried a lot of different places, and that was really fun. And another piece that won an award was about places to go with special needs children, services and places to have entertainment and fun activities for special needs kids. And that was really fun to do. And I enjoyed that. And I always feel like I'm learning something, which is so important to me. That's it. That's, I've enjoyed working for the magazine, and I see it when it comes out. It's always beautiful looking. It's a glossy, beautiful magazine, and I think they do a really great job with that. So I'm very proud to be able to say that I'm a freelancer for them. So thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. All right, let's turn to Sharon Geltner. I just want to tell you the first, it's funny that both of you have raised the charity theme and philanthropy, because that's what Sharon's novel is about. And it has I think one of the great opening lines is, "My tiara is too tight." It's the opening line. And I think that kind of sets the tone and sets this scene for the novel. So Sharon, tell me, what attracted you to write about the Southern Florida charity ball scene, and is it based on personal experience?
Ah, that's the question. Well, Charity Bash, oh, here's what it looks like up close. You can see the poster behind me, but here's what the book looks like. The cover is designed by Sharon Koskoff, who's a local artist of great renown. And the puppy on the cover is a pandemic rescue from Peggy Adams. So that's a charity thing. How did I get involved? Well, when I first started reporting in South Florida, and I am a Florida native, by the way, one of the stories I did ended up appearing as far away as Paris and Frankfurt, ran all over the country, and there was almost a riot in the parking lot. It turns out I did a feature that was assigned to me about the Countess Henrietta de Hornley.
Yeah.
And I was asked to profile her. For the people in the audience, the Zoom audience who don't know, she was for many years the town's largest philanthropist, and a lot of buildings were named after her: hospital wings, school courtyards and lobbies, train stations, the works. And it was always with her full title, Countess Henrietta de Hornley. She had also promised charities $22 million in her will. So she was definitely invited to every gala, party, luncheon, you name it, fashion show, auction. So my story revealed that her title, Countess, was phony baloney. She had bought the title years before from a con man in New York City. And her husband had become a wealthy tool and die maker. And so he could front the fee for the title and the tiaras and the gowns and the charity donations. But when the article hit, I'm going to go ahead and call her Countess because she's passed. So at the age of 104, by the way, she was very, very, very incensed. And so the city council planned a rally to show their support because all the charities were afraid they were going to be cut off. And in fact, she did say, unless those two are fired, the reporter and the editor, and banned from Boca, I'm cutting off all the charities. So that's when everyone got very, very excited. And that's when they held the rally. Oh, I even have a little stuffed flamingo with her name on it that appeared at the time. I should have thought of that. Maybe I'll get that later. So that's how I got interested in covering the charity scene. Then later on, I worked for charities full time. I've also volunteered for charities and served on the board. And it's kind of like what Mary Kate alluded to, that things aren't always what they seem in Palm Beach. And some big donors are anonymous and don't want all the fame. And some donors demand a lot of the royal treatment. And so to me, charities are like politics and sausage. You don't want to see how they're really made, but they make for good reading.
Okay, thank you. That was very exciting. I'm going to stay with you, Sharon, for the next question, which is, let's talk about Florida and let's talk about the culture here.
Mm-hmm.
I just like 200 sunny days a year, never more than an hour's drive to the coast.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a pleasure culture, or is it, which I got a feeling from your book, kind of a money culture?
Money's pleasure, right? Money's power, power's pleasure in any city. But it's interesting what you say, because we're the sunny state with the shady people. A lot of people come here to start a new identity. It's harder to do because of the digital media and all that, but it can be done. People also come here for the bankruptcy laws because you can own a $60 million mansion on the waterfront, but if that is your primary residence in Florida, your creditors can't take your home. And people also come here because there's no state income tax. So it's true, you're hearing about a lot of people moving here due to COVID because of the sunny weather, the more spacious homes and all that. But when you have people like Sly Stallone and Bon Jovi moving here, they have all that already, including in California. So they are partly moving here probably for the loose, well, I don't want to talk out of hand. The tax situation is very favorable here for the wealthy. And they're probably moving also to Palm Beach for the privacy. But the thing about Palm Beach is it's going to be even more notorious because of the elephant in the room, which is our former president who plans to live in Mar-a-Lago. But Palm Beach is not monolithic. They have a lot of people that do like him. They have a lot of people that despise him. But what they all have in common, besides seeking pleasure, is privacy. And they don't like the notoriety. They'll talk about the traffic, but that's code for notoriety. So there's things changing in Palm Beach, and it's really very interesting.
Thank you. Mary Kay, let's go to you and talk about how you got to know and how you keep in touch with the community. I was amazed that something like 65% of the people who live in Florida were not born here. It's second only to Nevada for non-natives. So how long have you been in Florida, and how did you get to really know it?
I've been in Florida for, I guess, a little over 35 years now. I moved from Illinois. And I guess I got to know a lot of it, of course, working for a daily newspaper, because you always know what's going on. I mean, that's part of the job. So you really do get to understand the broader community that way. I got to know the island community where I live just by being here. But I have to confess that I don't think I really knew it that well until I started the newspaper. I mean, there are, 5 private clubs in our area that I had never stepped foot in. I'm not a private club person. And it's just been fascinating to see the role that they play in the community for so many of the residents who've been coming here, quite frankly, for generations. This part of the coast is very old money, and they've been here for a long time. As you go north, it gets a little newer, I would say. Well, and south, Boca's newer, Manalapan's newer. But in between, it's old money. They're very focused on their clubs. I think the pleasure part of what you were suggesting is a lot of the reason they're here. Many of them are seasonal, and a lot of them, I mean, there are some private clubs here that most people have never been in, to be honest. It's the 1% of the 1% of the 1% that belong to them. The Gulfstream Golf Club, for example. So I wouldn't say that I know the area. I'm not of them, but I'm aware of them, and I'm aware of what they consider to be important. And I think privacy, as Sharon said, is a big part of that.
Okay. Deborah, I know that you also edited and wrote for a newspaper up north, I think Connecticut, I think.
Scarsdale, New York.
Scarsdale. And I lived in Westchester too for a long time, and I actually read that paper, the sister version of that paper. So how did you find Florida when you first came, and what's the difference about covering, I mean, Scarsdale is also a very affluent community.
Right.
What's the difference that you've seen up north versus Florida, in terms of the pleasure culture?
Well, you know what? I think maybe the difference would be, it seemed like they were up north in Scarsdale. It was very focused on the schools and schooling, and that would be sort of the big difference. I sort of think of this part of the world as more over 50, say, and more, although I know that's changing, but it seems like it's more retired people who are not so focused on the schools or their kids or things like that. So I think that the difference is that the pleasure principle comes in more to the fore. People are interested in boating and golfing and other leisure activities more so than, what I used to write about up north, kind of thing. Yeah.
Mary Kay, I wanted to ask you, you alluded to that your business was going good, and I wanted to know how I've heard I've read both things, that people have turned more to local news because of COVID, and that local news is in trouble because of COVID. So I don't know what to think. How's business?
Business is off because of COVID. We're still getting by, but since we own the paper, it's a family-run business. There are things we can do. You know, we can take a few months without salary. We can shrink the paper down. We've just been able, with the Florida Press Association, to actually set up a nonprofit giving part for the paper. So our readers who don't have to pay for the paper, it's free distribution, can donate if they would like to. So, I mean, we're always trying to survive. And with season right now, we're hanging in there, we're doing okay. But it has been, and the reason it's hard for local newspapers is we depend on advertising. So our advertisers, I mean, the restaurant industry, as we all know, is suffering. So we lose those advertisers unless they're owned by large companies. So it is a tough time. It's a very tough time for community newspapers. But I do think also the fact that we're monthly gives us an edge over the papers that are daily. It takes a much larger organization to do a daily newspaper, make the daily miracle, than it does to produce a monthly publication.
Thank you. So Sharon, you wrote your book in a pre-COVID world.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you make fun of charity balls and some of what I would call like the second wives club of the young wives of the old millionaires.
Third or fourth wives too, but okay.
Who are edging, for competitively, and it's not a pretty picture. It's a satire. The sympathetic characters are those who work for the fancy ladies, who are taking care of all the details and trying to stay decently dressed on a very small salary.
Right.
So have you gotten any flack? I mean, it's a hard time for charities. This is kind of making fun of philanthropy. What's been the reaction?
Well, that's a good question, Ronnie. The reaction from people who know the world of Palm Beach philanthropy is that this is the way it really is. The way you see it, satire, really funny, over the top, is what people outside our region are saying. But the people who are living through it, probably all the people here that are speaking, maybe some of it's exaggerated a bit or very colorful, but the power structure is the way it is. And some of the descriptions, even though they don't refer to real people, of course, they say are accurate. So I guess it depends whether you're sort of on the inside serving this industry or on the outside reading about it for entertainment.
So you say it's a realistic portrait.
Well, maybe that's up to the readers to judge.
Okay.
That's the feedback I'm getting from people who are here. Now, people who read it in New York, which is the sixth borough, we're the sixth borough of New York, I think. They tell me it seems over the top, unless they are in the charity or fashion industries, then they think it's pretty true to life. So, but that's the great thing about books, is that every reader brings their own unique perspective to it, their own experience. So they're going to read it in different ways. But I get a big kick out of anyone's reaction, whether they say it's over the top or whether they think it's very true to life.
Okay, that's great. I'm out of questions. I'd like to get some from the audience. We haven't been able to get our chat working, and I don't exactly know how to do it, but I'm going to put everyone on view, and if someone raises their hand, I'll call on them. Linda Rosen.
Okay, I have the question everybody probably wants to know. What was the best burger?
Actually, that was a hard one, because there's so many delicious ones around. I think one of my favorite was Charm City in Deerfield.
I don't know it yet.
Well,
Is it still in existence?
I think so. I drove by there the other day, and it's still open. And there are a few tables outside, but Charm City Burger was one. And I'm trying to think what was another one. Tucker Dukes.
Oh.
was on the list. And I'm trying to think. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any of the others, but I do remember Tucker Dukes
Okay, thank
and
you.
Farm City.
Another question? Angela.
I have to unmute. So this is for Mary Kate. That is about your demographic. You have been in business for almost a couple decades, right? How have you seen that change over the last years?
I would have to say that our audience is getting younger. I mean, a big piece of our audience is here because of Gulfstream School. So they're parents with children. But even in Briny Breezes, of all places, which everybody thinks about as being over 80 probably, it's really much younger retirees now. I would say the average age is probably 70. There's a lot of 60 somethings moving to Briny Breezes. They're retiring. They came here for generations with their parents, and they realize they can't afford to buy along the coast anymore, but they can sure have their place in Briny Breezes. And so they have really skewed that community much younger. So yeah, I would think it's younger. We did an audience analysis, gosh, I guess it's been about 5 years ago. And it told us that our core reader was a 51-year-old woman. So that might give you an idea of the audience that we write for.
I love that you mentioned Briny Breezes. I lived next door back in the late 60s, early 70s. So I know that community very well. And they all were offered many years ago, $1 million a shot. And all these people didn't sell.
Well, actually they voted to sell.
Yes.
But then the market collapsed, and the sale, which was never in my mind a legitimate sale offer, fell through. So
Do you see, just one more follow up on this, are you seeing an influx of readers that from like international readers that are coming in as either snowbirds or permanent residents, or is it predominantly, say, US based people?
most of this area is very US based. I mean, we have there's Canadians, not this year, there's Canadians aren't coming down, but that would be really internationally, most of it. We really don't have the international neighbors that I think maybe Boca Raton has, for example, one of the larger cities we cover.
Yeah, great, thanks.
One thing I was going to mention to Sharon, she's saying it's not a satire, her book, and yet the charity involved, the central charity in the book, does support groups for the affluent.
I'm sorry if I missed.
Which I found one of the more delightful things in the book.
Thank you. The book is definitely a satire. So thank you. I'm glad you think so. And it's a comic satire and a cozy mystery. But my point was, and if I wasn't clear, I apologize, that depending on where the reader is coming from, whether it's inside that Palm Beach community, if only to work for the very wealthy, or if they're in a completely different area that they've never mingled at these charity galas or something. The people who haven't been exposed to the Palm Beach mystique, say maybe someone reading it in, say, Chicago, even though they have very wealthy people too, they see it as real over the top. But people who are from here, and especially those who have worked at Mar-a-Lago or worked for these different private clubs like Mary Kate mentioned, or serve the ladies who lunch, and people who have sudden wealth syndrome and the affluent, they see it as satire. They see it as very realistic. It just depends where you're coming from. But yes, it was written as a satire, and I think most people see it that way, for good or bad.
And more questions from the audience? I'm looking for hands. Janet, unmute yourself.
So Mary Kate, the follow-up, because I had driven by Briny Breezes, especially, there's a beautiful view of the ocean from there. And when you couldn't go to the beach during COVID, I would just take myself and meander over there. But I guess like what I heard was that they voted down selling, and you're saying that in fact they voted to sell.
Yes, they did vote to sell.
Uh-huh.
I own a unit in Briny Breezes, so I could have been one of those millionaires. And the I forget what the percentage was now that had to vote to sell. It's a co-op, so
Right.
you know they had to be a certain percentage that vote to sell, and they did in fact vote to sell, but then the deal fell apart.
So I wonder who started the rumor that they stood firm and didn't, you know, I wonder who started that rumor.
Probably those who didn't want to sell, because it was a close vote. It was a close.
It started in 1970, that rumor, by the way. So that's how long it's been around.
Yeah.
Other questions? I'm looking. Pamela.
I'd like to know from those who write locally about Palm Beach, what the effect of Donald Trump's permanent residency here will be on your future possible novels or stories, if there will be any kind of effect from his residing here.
Yeah.
Want to
Well,
start,
I mean,
Deborah?
I will just say real quickly that we have always considered ourselves extremely lucky that our coverage area only goes through South. But we have never had to cover Palm Beach. And we have jokingly said recently, if Trump doesn't get to live at Mar-a-Lago and has to go house shopping, if he moves down to this area, we may have to close the paper.
Yeah.
We just wouldn't have the resources. So.
Well, there is a problem with his residing there, if I understand correctly. Is that right? Because he turned it into a club?
There's supposed to be a rule that you can live 7 days at a time, 3 times a year. So there's a lot of arguments. There's even a group, an anonymous group right now called the Palm Beach Committee that sent a letter to all the neighbors of Mar-a-Lago saying they didn't want a bunch of crazies and Proud Boys and people of that ilk moving in, and don't they value their privacy? But I'm also hearing that because Donald Trump himself is the owner, that perhaps this residency limit doesn't apply to him. But he has been very eager in the past to sue. When he originally moved to Palm Beach or was thinking of setting up a club there, he sued the county for $75 million because of the noise from the airplanes from Palm Beach International Airport flying over Mar-a-Lago. He eventually got a 99-year lease at about originally like $55,000 a year, which is now where his golf course is. Mm-hmm. So I can't predict what he'll do, but he has shown that he will pay legal fees if he feels he's in the right about something. And when you're, even if you're a big, very wealthy town, you're still a small government. Would they be able to fight those kind of legal battles? I don't know.
What do you think, Deborah? You have an answer for that?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Any other questions that are not about that subject? Erica.
Yeah, I'm a local writer wondering about the opportunities for local writers, for local publications. Deborah and Ocean Ridge. I'm sorry, your name is not up there, so I don't.
Yeah, I know. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I will.
Mary Kate Lemming is her name.
Mary Kay, yeah.
I mean, I will say we seldom take submitted pieces. We have a large group of writers who write for us, and I'm not even able to keep them employed as much as I would like to right now because of the economy. So it's very, very rare that I do. People do pitch me stories, and occasionally if it's someone who I know has a good track record with another publication, like a magazine writer, for example. Oh, somebody put my name up there. Great, thank you. I will sometimes take a pitch and let them write a story, but that's not real common, and usually it's because I've seen their work published elsewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
I write humor about Florida, among other places, and you know, I've written for every big magazine in the country. So
Yeah, Erica, Erica writes a fantastic blog called Snarky Seniors.
it's a newsletter, not a blog.
Oh, it's a newsletter? Newsletter, Snarky Senior, which is a wonderful.
MarcusSenior.com. You can look it up.
But, you know, I would say, you know, I really don't have an in at the magazine in that way. I would say just, you know, pitch something to the publisher and see if you can get in that way. But yeah, I mean, you're published all over. So I should think it would be, you know, you'd have a great chance of getting in somewhere on a regular basis because your columns are great. And you're prolific. You're prolific.
I don't know if I could handle yet another public, but I mean, I might. I'd like to repurpose some of my South Florida stuff.
Yeah.
I write funny satirical essays and op-eds about South Florida
Yeah.
that, you know, might be fun for a South Florida publication.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, another question. I'm looking for hands. No. All right, let me, go ahead, Linda.
Just one more. The two publications, the Coastal Star and the Boca one, are they all, is Boca's only in Boca? Is Coastal Star only on that strip? Or do they come west of 95?
Well, I will say that the Observer covers South Florida. So, I mean, there are like features and advertisers and places that you know, are Coral Springs, you know, and definitely west of 95 for sure. For sure. Many advertisers, many stories cover the whole, you know, we cover stories sometimes in Miami, all over. So it's not just Boca Raton.
We're very hyper local, and I don't think I could even tell you how many hours I spend on the property appraisers database looking to see if people whose names are in press releases I receive live in our area or not. Because I spend a lot of time doing that because we really do try and focus just on the Barrier Island. Now, our columnists, you know, when we're writing about food or we're writing about health or we're writing about pets, I mean, they have a little more leeway to go off the island. But when we're really covering news and also when we're focused on philanthropy, we really look for the people who live in our area.
Okay, thanks.
Sandy, go ahead. Unmute. You have to unmute, Sandy.
Bottom left of your screen, Sandy.
We don't hear you, Sandy.
Bottom left of your screen, click the little microphone.
There you go.
There we go. I didn't hear you say my name. I thought you said a different name. That's why I wasn't paying any attention. Not that I wasn't paying any attention. I didn't respond because I didn't think it was me.
Okay.
And I'm sure I'm going to be very embarrassed when I ask this question. How does one get? Is it that you deliver it? Do you have a subscription for either one of them? The book I can figure out, but the other two things, I don't know. How is it that you have it sent to your house? Do you pay for a subscription? What is it?
Well, I'll say the Boca Raton Observer, I mean, sometimes they're delivered. You'll see them in the doctor's offices, the dentist offices, places.
But nobody's touching those things now.
But they're also delivered to my building. I get some in the lobby of my my building where I live. And you can also buy it in Barnes and Noble if you so choose. It's on the newsstand. So and I think you can subscribe if you like. I mean, it's generally I see it free, but people can subscribe and pay, and you can buy it if you want. So that's and I can tell you, they say that they have 170 173,000 monthly readers and 75,000 subscribers, monthly subscribers. So that's the official word. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And
Kate, what about you?
If you live on the barrier island, between Palm Beach and Boca Raton, it's delivered either in your driveway, at your condo, or in your mailbox. It varies by area. You can subscribe. We have a few hundred people who do. Most of them are snowbirds and they like to get the paper when they're up north. It's also available online at thecoastalstar.com. And you can actually, there's a way you can just flip through the paper online too, if you want to see it that way. And it's free, unless you are having it mailed to you, and then we have to cover the cost of the mail, of course.
Yes, the Boca Raton Observer is also online. Yeah, so you can read it online if you like.
because I was going to say, I only live a little west of 95, you know, just a little. So,
And I'm sure the Observer too. I mean, we're at the public libraries, we're at City Hall, we're at those kind of places in the community we cover. And our advertisers keep racks as well. So, you know, so some of the businesses on Atlantic Avenue, for example, get copies.
Sharon, where's your book for sale?
My book is for sale at Green's Pharmacy, Hands in Delray. It's been at the Breakers. We'll probably be restocking. It's been at the resort in Manalapan. Where else? It's been at it's at Classic Bookshop right now. It's also at the Palm Beach Bookstore, and you can get it online as well. Oh, it's also been at the some of the Marriotts along Singer Island and through there.
Huh. That's an interesting distribution. Yeah, I got it on Kindle.
I guess I could have said that, and you can also get it on Kindle.
Yeah.
I am doing an experiment right now where for Kindle Unlimited, where it's a very low price, but you can also buy it in paperback.
Mm-hmm. Andrea. Andrea, you raising your hand? We can't hear you.
My background's in magazine publishing, so I really enjoyed this discussion. So thank you all. And I loved Sharon's book. I just wanted to ask you, it was delightful. I just wanted to ask you what you, with political, to some degree, and demographic changes that are going on, do you see any trends, big changes that you think are going to affect your publication? And mainly, well, a lot of it demographic and some political, with where you're going or the emphasis that you place, news coverage and so on. Do you see any changes or trends coming in the future?
That's a very good question. I really can't think of anything at this moment.
The only thing I can offer is we're working on a story right now, which is looking at the precinct by precinct vote in our area during the last presidential election. In a first glance at it, I really didn't see anything that shocked me. I do know that 3 election cycles ago, to go back to everybody's favorite town, Briny Breezes, the town was split 50-50 on voting for the Democratic presidential candidate and the Republican. And this year, the Republican candidate way outweighed the Democratic candidate. So Briny Breezes seems to be becoming more red. And the island has always been red. But I don't know if it's really become more so or if anything changed in the last election, but we're looking at that now for a story.
You know, something interesting I did want to mention that you're making me think about, Mary Kay. Right after the 2016 election, I was delivering books on Palm Beach at the Palm Beach Bookstore. And a lady walks in who looked very wealthy, but I guess I could be more specific. But the owner dropped everything to go over to her. And the lady said in a hushed voice, "Hillary called me last night. She can't believe how everyone didn't understand the real situation, misunderstood the real situation." So you're right that a lot of people are red or Republican on the island of Palm Beach. And we all know about the Potussies that Carl Hiaasen covered. But I got to tell you, there's another really wealthy cohort. They're not monolithic. And they were actually giving money to Hillary Clinton for that election. And Ronnie talked about the charity galas and all that. But there's a lot of very private dinners at someone's mansion where it might be $20,000 a plate, more if you get your picture taken with the candidate. And there's some very serious fundraising there. Like I'm talking maybe $2 million a pop. The same goes for charity. So there's a lot of fundraising, political and charitable, that maybe you don't hear about as much as a gala at Mar-a-Lago. But some of it is for the Democratic Party, believe it or not.
Yeah, one of Hillary's largest fundraisers lives in Manalapan, for example.
There you go. Yeah.
So I think we have time for one more round. Maybe you can each tell us briefly what's ahead for you this year. I was very impressed by Mary Kate's roundup of, she asked people in the street what they were looking forward to for the new year. And they were very touching to me, surprisingly, because you could feel everything that people had been deprived of for a year and how they were uncomfortable with it. So what now things are loosening up a little, at least with the vaccine. What's ahead? What are you looking forward to? Sorry if that was a bad question.
Well, I'm working on another novel. It's based, I worked originally in Washington, D.C. I probably forgot to say that, but it's based on 3 continents, including Washington, D.C. It's historical fiction, takes place over 60 years. It's written, but I'm going to edit it one more time and get it edited, and I hope to come out with that. And Sharon Koskoff will be designing that cover as well. That's one thing I look forward to. But I got to tell you, this last year has made me very grateful to be living in Florida, because we weren't cooped up in a little apartment. I used to envy the New York lifestyle, the Manhattan thing and all that. And this year really made me take stock and realize how good I have it. And I hope a lot of us Floridians feel that way, because we live in a beautiful area. We want to protect our environment and we want to appreciate what we have.
Thank you.
Well said, Sharon. Very well said. Yeah, I agree with that. Feel like I've been lucky to be in Florida this year. We do have a place in Manhattan that we did not go to this whole year. I haven't been there for 14 months. I look forward to, I hope I get more assignments. I hope, the publishing industry can stay healthy and continue to produce great material. And I hope I still have the opportunity to write more and do what I love to do. So that's, I'm grateful for what I've had so far, and I'm looking forward to more assignments.
Mary Kate, let's finish up with you.
Yeah, I think Sharon really said something important there, which is I think we are really lucky to live in Florida in this pandemic. If I couldn't do my morning walks on the beach, I don't know that I'd be functional. So it really has been a blessing to be here. I do miss traveling, and I would love to be able to plan a trip again. Planning is sometimes the most fun part, and I do miss that. And like many of you, I'm also working on a novel, and I found that the pandemic kind of was hard for me. It would be interesting sometime in another conversation to hear how you all dealt with that. But I found it just hard to concentrate on, my historical fiction that I'm writing that's based in Costa Rica, while I'm, just worried about my family getting sick. So yeah, I do hope to chisel a little piece of time away and work on my novel as well.
Very good. All right, I just want to remind you that on February 16th, we will be having a panel that focuses on romance writers and on romance. So I hope you will all attend. And thank you very much to our speakers and to WNBA for providing this forum.